Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. We appreciate you being here. We are presented and brought to you by FanDuel. Go on over to FanDuel and check out all the odds and everything. Even if you're not a bettor, it is still interesting to go over there, see what the public is thinking and what people are looking at and the odds of what's going on out there. We'll reference them a couple times in the show, but in this show, we are looking at the Big Ten football power rankings. After a crazy week, Iowa destroys Minnesota, Oregon struggles with Wisconsin. Michigan pulls it out late. Well, pulls it out late. They sealed it late, I guess you could say, against Michigan State. And overall, tons of craziness in college football. We'll talk the Big Ten, and who knows, we might have some shots at the SEC here at the end. You know how we do. Zach, thanks for being here. Should we get to the power rankings right away?
Yes, I think we should.
All right. Here we go. Here are me and Zach's power rankings. If you're watching on Twitter, YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening on podcast, I'm going to go ahead and list mine really fast, and then I'll have Zach list his. We'll kind of give our short thoughts here and there and get into it. I have Ohio State number one, not moving. Indiana number two. There's some commotion about them possibly being number one. I get it, but I'm just going to keep them there until we see the Big Ten championship game. I have Oregon at number three. Even though they struggled against Wisconsin, I still think the talent of this Oregon team, I think every team has a struggle now and then. It just happens. Number four, Michigan. Michigan looked good in this game against Michigan State. Not in every area, but Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall both rushing over 100 yards in the game. Bryce Underwood needs to be better, but still looked good getting the win. Iowa number five, they looked really good against Minnesota. We'll talk about them plenty. Number six,
Mhm.
USC. Washington gets the win over Illinois, so I put them above Illinois. Number seven, Illinois. Number eight, number nine, Minnesota. Number 10, Nebraska, followed by Northwestern, UCLA, Penn State, Maryland, Rutgers, Michigan State, Purdue, and Wisconsin. Zach, your rankings.
Mm. Yes, I was not here a week ago, so these are fresh from 2 weeks ago. Indiana number one. I have not changed that
I say
for
you
the
had them
past
there
few
2 weeks
weeks.
ago, so
Yeah, so that's the same. Ohio State number two, same. Here's my big change, and this is what we're going to talk about. I've got Iowa, me as the self-proclaimed Iowa hater, self-proclaimed Kirk Ferentz, take him out to retirement man. I have them at number three. Oregon four, SC at five, Michigan at six, Washington at seven, Illinois eight, Nebraska nine, Maryland and Minnesota 10 and 11. I had a really tough time figuring out where to put them, where to place those teams. Northwestern at 12, UCLA 13, Rutgers 14, Penn State 15, and then rounding out the bottom three, Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin.
okay. I feel like we should touch on Ohio State, Indiana real quick, just rehash that conversation. Nothing's changed for you, nothing's changed for me. I feel like you can kind of keep them there. I know it says one and two, but really it's kind of 1A, 1B for me. I just want to see what they look like in the Big Ten championship game, which honestly kind of might be the national championship game, if we're being honest. Max says that he believes Indiana well, not that he believes, he knows Indiana hasn't beat Ohio State since 1988. Until that changes, Ohio State should be above Indiana when they both have the same record. Zach, what says you?
Um, I I just don't know if you should use historical. Uh, like it's about this season, and I think what Indiana has done this season is a slight is slightly better than Ohio State. But I understand putting Ohio State in front of Indiana based on their body of work this season as well. And so I think just taking historical evidence out of it, taking the national championship from a year ago out of it, I think you have a good argument either way for Indiana or Ohio State. I look at what Indiana has done, how they've played. I just think they have looked a hair more polished, which doesn't mean that Ohio State won't come back and beat Indiana if they play in the Big Ten championship game. But right now, based on what I've seen, Indiana is one.
Yeah. And I think, you saw, uh, you kind of saw this weekend that obviously being able to do the, the like same opponent. What's that? What's that whole term there? When you have the same opponent and one team beat that
Uh,
opponent by more than the other team, type of stuff. Like that doesn't always translate.
mhm.
It can be a good indicator sometimes, but matchups and when games are played are such a big thing that I don't think you can say like, well, Indiana killed Illinois, so they're over Ohio State because Ohio State only, dominated. They didn't kill Illinois.
Mhm.
I didn't even say dominated. Illinois did some really good things in that game. But so I get that, but I still say I think Ohio State's the more talented team. And if Indiana had a crazy coaching advantage, I probably would put them over them. But at the same time, I also recognize that Indiana has played plenty of teams that are more talented than them on paper, and they've won. So
Mhm.
as far as I'm concerned, like I said, it's kind of a tie for me. I put them 1 and 2 there, but
Yeah.
I just want to see who wins the Big Ten championship game because
Yeah.
I think both those teams are going to be there.
Mhm.
So, all right, well, let's talk Iowa. Zach, this Iowa team, number 3, above Oregon. Man, what's your thought process here? Let's just start there. What's your thought process here?
So I've felt this way a little bit about Oregon. I think honestly, I said it when they played Penn State, and I continue to feel this way as I watch them play. Is I think they have elite pieces, but I don't think they are an elite team currently. And I saw that show up again against Wisconsin. Now, there was bad weather. Dante Moore got hurt, so he didn't come back to the game. At least I don't think he did. And there's wonky games, so I get that. I'm not saying that Oregon is a terrible team, but they just have not been super impressive over the past several weeks. And who they've played, you would think that they would at least get 1 or 2 big time wins. Now they did pulverize Rutgers. No offense to Rutgers, but I compare them to Iowa. What Iowa has done the past several weeks has been very impressive, right? They lose really close to Indiana, who we're saying Indiana's a top 2 team. Indiana, who beat Illinois by 53. Indiana, who went on the road and beat Oregon. They dominated Oregon, I think, far more than they dominated Iowa. Iowa is really strong on the lines. Special teams are good. Defense is really good. And, we were talking about this pre-show. What is Iowa starting to do that they were not doing before? Throw the football and throw it fairly well. Now, when I say fairly well, it's Iowa fairly well. It's not Indiana fairly well or Ohio State fairly well. But we have said if Iowa can be good at offense and great or elite at defense and special teams, they are a dangerous team. And that's what we've seen against Minnesota, who's a decent team. What we saw against Wisconsin, which granted, not a great team, but they have been very, very good. And they gutted out a win against Penn State, who has talent. I know people will say, well, Penn State's not good. They're in their bottom third of your power rankings. But they still took Penn State's best shot after they rallied the troops, and they came back and won that game. So I give them a lot of props.
I'm going to say something and it's going to not sound like it's not going to sound right because Oregon hasn't done it either. So maybe I'm holding Iowa to a different standard. And I think it's fair to hold Iowa to a different standard because the history suggests that Oregon is better. The talent suggests that Oregon is better. I want to see Indiana get the win outside of Kinnick, right? I want to see them get the big win outside of Kinnick. What did we see when they traveled to Iowa State? They lost that game, right? I mean, what was the other loss they had? I'm blanking on it right
Indiana.
now.
Indiana.
Indiana, right?
At
Now they
home.
lost
At
at
home.
Kinnick to Indiana, but you could argue that they should have won that game if Mark Gronowski didn't get hurt. I think that your team needs to be more than one guy, but with the starting quarterback, it's also hard to say that. So I get it. So I still think Michigan is a more talented version of Iowa. I think right now, Mark Gronowski is a better quarterback than Bryce Underwood. If I'm doing my quarterback power rankings again, I'm moving Drake Lindsey way down and I'm moving Mark Gronowski way up. Honestly,
Mhm.
Mark Gronowski's probably 7 or 8. right now. I probably move him above Nico Iamaleava, which is kind of crazy, but the dude wins. He's the most winningest starting quarterback in all of college football, Mark Gronowski. So Kirk Ferentz, the most winningest Big Ten coach in all of Big Ten history, and we can argue, just longevity or whatever, but staying at a job for really long is still pretty impressive, even if it is Iowa who keeps their coaches around for a long time, which isn't a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think there are arguments for it, but for me, when I look at what typically wins you the game in college football, it's talent and it's coaching. I don't think Dan Lanning's a bad coach. I think Kirk Ferentz probably is a better in-game coach, decision maker, and stuff like that. But I think I trust an Oregon team still more than I do Iowa. But if you're going by resume, I can see what you're saying and putting Iowa
Yeah.
above them with how they've looked lately.
Yeah. Well, and I think to your point, I think there is an assumption. Assumption is not the right word. Presupposition that there are 3 elite teams in the Big Ten: Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon. And I think that makes sense because you look at the talent, you look at the results on the field. But I think, and I say this about myself, I have not been an Iowa believer. I might pick Iowa to beat Oregon. And I honestly might pick them to beat USC at USC, because the thing that travels, and this is where I understand what you're saying about winning outside of Kinnick, but the thing that travels is your offensive and defensive lines, which they have in spades. And I think they might kick the crap out of some of these teams because they have the advantage at the line of scrimmage. Now, I think SC has firepower that Iowa's going to have to deal with. Obviously, Oregon has firepower. Nebraska has firepower. Like those 2 road games, USC and Nebraska, that's going to be really tough. But Iowa just looked so good today. And I think people might be tempted to be like, well, Minnesota stinks. I don't think Minnesota stinks. I think they're good. I think they made Drake Lindsay look like a JV quarterback. And that's hard to do because I think Drake Lindsay is actually pretty good.
Yeah. Iowa won today 41-3. Mark Gronowski was 12-19. Michigan State just scored, by the way. 135 yards, 1 touchdown. Hecklinski was 1 for 1 for 6 yards, so he must have came in at the end. Kamar Moulton, 15 carries for 75 yards, and Mark Gronowski had another rushing touchdown, 9 carries for 24 yards. I mean, like, if you can promise me that Iowa gets either a pick six or a return for a touchdown against Oregon, yeah, I like it. I like Iowa to win that game, especially at Kinnick. But I don't know if I can bank on that. Like, that's the hardest thing for me is like some of the stuff with Iowa, I want to bank on the sure thing, but I don't know if I can bank on some of that stuff with Iowa. It's about as sure as a thing as it can be with them, but
yeah.
And so there's people talking about wins in the chat. I think it was Fisherman said Oregon's best win is Northwestern. What's Iowa's best win? Minnesota?
It could be Minnesota. You could make an argument for talent. It could be Penn State. The thing that really kills Iowa is, and they've had to ramp up, and I think you have to recognize that teams progress throughout the season, but the loss to Iowa State kills them. Like it really it makes their playoff case reliant on winning out, which stinks. Because I think if they beat Iowa State, I think if they had beaten Iowa State in September, Iowa is probably a top 15 team at this point and solidly in the playoff conversation.
Oh man, I said it at the beginning of the whole thing. I said if you beat Iowa State, I believe in Iowa.
Yeah.
Like I was set to be an Iowa believer if they just beat Iowa State.
Yeah.
And like I get it. Like I kind of went in on Kirk Ferentz after that game for, oh yeah, we improved. Mark Gronowski improved, and I get it, but at the same time, I don't know. It just there's certain stuff with that. So, but yeah, I mean Iowa. Even though I don't have them third like you, I totally agree. They could beat Oregon. I'm probably going to pick Oregon to win that game still, but I would not be surprised if Iowa wins it
Mm-hmm.
at all because it is at Iowa. You could get a pick six. You could get a kick return for a touchdown. You could get a kick return and a punt return for a touchdown for all we know. Caden Widgeon is really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Michigan, I have them 4. You have them at 6. Are you just trying to keep them below USC there because they lost to USC, or what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think that's part of it. I also still think I I think it's close, but I think you have to honor the big win of USC over Michigan. And I think Oregon's better than Michigan too. So I think they're firmly in the top third. And I think when they play their best, they could be one of the best teams in the country, but too inconsistent. And I think you have to honor their loss.
Mm-hmm. David says, someone please explain that ranking Michigan at number 4. Gladly, David. I think Michigan has one of the best defenses in the Big Ten. I think that Michigan knows who they are. They know who their identity is. They play their brand of football. I think that Bryce Underwood is. He did not play as well as I would have hoped for him to play in this game against Michigan State to give me more confidence in him. But I just think he is a game changer with his athleticism, his mobility. Even if he's not throwing the ball well, I think his receivers have gotten much, much better. I think if you're judging Michigan based on the Oklahoma game, I think that you're looking at a very outdated Michigan team, in my opinion. I think that Bryce Underwood is a different quarterback right now. I think he's playing with a different kind of confidence. And if you want to say the USC game, I hear you, but I almost think the USC game is kind of like not who they actually were. And I almost could say that about USC against Illinois. And I could probably say that about Washington against Michigan, right? Like I just think there's some times when you go on the road in the Big Ten with as much travel as there is, I think sometimes we do not give teams enough credit for how hard it is to go on the road. Not just the travel, but going to the USC, going to
Mm-hmm.
Washington, I mean, I don't think anybody gives Ohio State enough credit for going on the road to Washington and holding Washington to 6 points. Do you see what they did to Illinois today? Like, we'll talk about them in a second. That offense looks really, really good. Jonah
Yep.
Coleman looks really good. Damon Williams, like Denzel Boston was fighting injury there the entire second half. And every time he came back in, he made a play. So I think it's really, really tough to win on the road in the Big Ten, especially when you're traveling cross country like that. And so I personally don't ding teams as much when that
Mm-hmm.
happens.
Yeah.
I can understand if you want to say Michigan at 6 because they lost to USC, and you want to say, well, USC lost to Illinois. I get that, but I
Mm-hmm.
also think if you're going to honor the Michigan loss to USC, I think you need to honor the USC loss to Illinois as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me.
Yeah. I think one of the difficulties as we continue to progress in the season too is that there's more data. So like I think it was the line that Bubba asked about Illinois behind SC. You have to remember Illinois has lost 3 games. And now they've lost to an unranked team, which Washington should not be unranked. We've been banging the drum for that for weeks now, maybe months. But the fact that Illinois lost to a really good team today, but they still lost. And they still lost to a team that's not in the same stratosphere, quite honestly, as Indiana and Ohio State. So, like, that changes the calculus. SC has, they lost by 10 to a really good Notre Dame team. And I'm trying to remember who their other loss was. Who was their other loss?
Illinois, Ohio
Oh,
State,
yeah.
Indiana.
Yeah, it's Illinois.
Oh.
Gosh. Sorry. I completely forgot. Yes, Illinois and then Notre Dame, but
Mm-hmm.
they also have a win over Michigan. They have I'm trying to remember what their record is in conference. If you can't tell, I am
You're good.
fading.
You're good.
So, but yeah, I just think SC has 2 losses, Illinois has 3. I would argue that SC has the better win over Michigan, although Illinois has the win over SC.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeah, there's just more data
Well,
points.
and they're talking to the chat about like, well, this loss looked worse than this loss, and that looked worse than that loss. And I think we also need to understand here that when we're doing this, is like power rankings are not resume rankings. We take the
Mhm.
resume into account somewhat, like we were just talking about what best win, Iowa, Oregon, that comes into account somewhat. But for the most part, we're trying to say who is the better team right now. Who would we pick on a neutral field to win that game? And right now, I feel like, not going on the road, being on a neutral field, Michigan's the top 4 team in the Big Ten, in my opinion. Because I don't think one game defines an entire team, right?
Mhm.
If one game defined an entire team, then Ohio State losing to Oregon last year or Ohio State losing to Michigan last year would have ended their season, right? But in this new era of college football, you can lose 2 games and still go to the playoffs and win it all. Now, I'm not trying to say that Michigan, USC, or Iowa's going to go and win it all or anything like that, but I am saying that, like, I don't think one loss defines everything for you. I think you have to look at the players and who they are.
Mhm.
And right now, like, I get people aren't super high on Bryce Underwood. I like the game changing ability that he has. I like the mobility. I like what he brings to the table to be able to change games. I think he changed part of that game in the Washington game there late. I think that
Mhm.
was huge for them. And I think he made some plays in that Nebraska game to help as well. However, you would say that was probably more the Michigan defense than anything else.
I think you could make an argument that the teams that are 3 through 8 in our power rankings are probably all similar. In that I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of parity. I know that word feels like a dirty word, but it seems like there's a
You
lot of
wouldn't include
parity
Nebraska in
between.
that? Nebraska, Minnesota?
Yeah, I might. Not
I
Minnesota.
don't
Not
understand. I don't
Minnesota.
understand your Minnesota ranking of Maryland. So anything on Washington, Illinois, Nebraska. I still have Minnesota over Nebraska. You have Minnesota
Yeah,
behind Nebraska and Maryland. So I think that's probably our next place to go.
yeah. I don't think the Nebraska loss to Minnesota is indicative. Like that felt like the typical Nebraska oopsie that they avoided today, which I was proud of them for doing that. Um,
But is it typical that Nebraska only has one oopsie? That's my thing. Like I'm willing to give some credit to like Michigan and Washington and Illinois. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit. But in Nebraska's past, it feels like there's more than one oopsie. You
I
know?
I think you're right, but do I compare that to Minnesota, who obviously beat Nebraska, but they have more losses? They lost to Cal, and like Cal is
But again, redshirt
on the
freshman
road.
quarterback
On
on
the
the
road,
road
yeah,
early in the season.
but I think they lost to Cal. They got blanked by Ohio State, and they got blanked by
Iowa.
Iowa. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my brain's not working. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Um, you're having me make arguments about teams where, like, I might as well just be
I
like
know
in
it's
the
11:30 at
hospital.
night. You're cooked, man. It's
Yeah,
11:30 at night, and you're trying to
this
argue
is
with
why
me.
you do this. It's not for power rankings. You just want to make a fool out of me. This is I.
Yeah.
I know how you work, Jr. This is bold moves. No, I
I
I
guess
yeah.
I can understand the skepticism of Minnesota. Personally, for me, it's too early to rank Nebraska above Minnesota. Minnesota just had a huge win over them. I know that the Nebraska fans and Matt Rule will say, "Oh, we just overlooked them. We didn't think about them. We didn't play." Well, that's on you, Nebraska, that you are going to allow yourself to go into another team's stadium and you're going to overlook that team. I'm sorry. I can't I can't pick you to be above another team in the power rankings when just a week ago you overlooked that team and you got blanked by them,
Yeah.
right? So, and maybe I should be holding Michigan to the same standard. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think this is what makes this hard is you're trying to nitpick inconsistencies. And which inconsistencies do you value more than others?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to coaching.
Yeah. I will say this about Minnesota. I actually really like Minnesota. I think they're much better than people give them credit for. But I think the thing that kills them is that when they've lost, they've really lost. And that's going to be clipped and be like, well, of course they really lost. But my point is that there's no doubt that they were the weaker team. I mean, and we see Ohio State's done this to a lot of teams this year, but Minnesota felt like a JV team playing Ohio State. And that's not meant to disrespect Minnesota. But I don't know if I get that vibe from Nebraska, even though they lost to Nebraska or lost to Minnesota.
Yeah. I mean, if Nebraska can fix a few different things, if they can fix their O-line, I mean, they were better today, I guess, against Northwestern, but it's not hard to be better than 9 sacks. So, yeah. That's a good point there, Ryan.
Yeah, this is really why I put Nebraska 9th.
There you go. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
I'm trying to defend it logically. It's
You
not.
have a couple more here, and then we'll get out of here. You have Maryland above Minnesota. What's your thoughts there?
I don't know how I this is honestly, and Maryland was on a bye. I honestly don't know what to make of Maryland because, and particularly their losses, because if you lined up Maryland and Minnesota tomorrow on a neutral field, I'm picking Maryland. But I think what's hard, so they lost at home to a really good Washington team. They better be in the top 25 tomorrow. I will riot if they're not in the top 25 tomorrow.
Washington's not going to be in the top 25.
You don't think Washington's going to be in the top 25? After
No.
beating a top 25 team by 17?
Because they were at home, and
people are stupid. And
I'm telling you, it's not going to happen.
We need to fire AP voters into the sun. I'm so just done with it.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're going to put Auburn in or somebody. Not Auburn. I'm just making
I was say if they put Auburn in, man, forget the NCAA stink shirts. We need the AP poll stink shirts.
Like 10 or 11. I think there were 11 5-2 teams are better in the Big Ten, and only 5 of them were in the top 25.
Yeah. Anyway, Maryland beat a really
Mississippi State is going to get in the top 25 before Washington does, and they're 4-4.
They're not getting in. Not with
they're
another
not getting
loss.
in this week, but I'm saying they would get in before Washington.
I hate.
Not that I think they should. I'm just saying that's what the AP voters would do.
SEC bias is crap. Anyway, they had a tough 3-game stretch with Washington, Nebraska, and at UCLA. And I think that people are going to look at the UCLA loss today and be like, oh, it was a mirage. Like I saw someone saying, how could Penn State lose to UCLA? It's like, guys, let's not overreact.
Travel.
Yeah.
Injured linebackers.
Right. Let's not overreact. Like Indiana does this to teams that are not as skilled, right? The way that Curt Cignetti coaches. So Maryland, I think they've had 3 very tough losses to 3 teams, 2 teams that are very good and are going to go to bowl games and might end up ranked in the top 25 and better. And one of these teams that they lost to was on the road and they had nothing to lose. And so I don't know. Like I think I just trust Maryland right now a little bit more than Minnesota.
I could not disagree more. I mean, I do not trust Maryland at all. When you give up fourth quarter leads like that, they tied it 17-7 with like a minute left in that game at UCLA, and the defense, the part of this team that I trusted the most, the defense, lets them just drive down the field and get a field goal. Targeting penalties galore. Like I know I've said on here that some of that stuff is just like, chance stuff. I don't necessarily hold it against the coaching staff as much, but it is pretty consistent. It does happen a lot. So I don't know. And I think if when you're in the Big Ten, if you want to be up around the middle of the Big Ten, you have to win your home games. And Maryland squandered a home game against Washington where they were up by 20 points, and a home game against Nebraska when they were up by 10.
Mm.
Nebraska doesn't do that to anybody, but they did against Maryland. So, sorry,
Yeah.
Maryland fans. I do not hate you. I ranked you at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I just
It's
want you to
true.
be good because I
It's
like
true.
Malik Washington.
Yeah. I think you make good points. And like I said, I am not like, as I'm defending Maryland, I'm not there. It's not 100-0. It's like more like 53-47, like 53 Minnesota, or no, 53 Maryland, 47 Minnesota.
Wow, high scoring game.
No,
I
like
know.
percentages. Don't do this to me, JR. I'm like, yeah,
I'm messing with you. I'm
yeah,
messing with you.
yeah.
Well, we are pretty much in agreement in our bottom six. I do have Maryland down there. You have UCLA down there instead, and then Rutgers, Penn State, Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin. That's pretty much where we're at. Anything else on the power rankings you want to bring up, Zach?
Nope.
All right. Well, very good. Thanks everybody for being here. We appreciate it. We're gonna head out after this. I'm gonna do my performance ratings tiers after this, and then gonna try to do some single like one-off videos this week about Big Ten teams and what they got going for them and stuff like that. Gonna see if you guys like that kind of stuff. So if you're an Iowa fan, I'm planning to do one on you. Uh, let's see, what else do I have? I have Ohio State, Michigan. I'm planning to do one on. Basically, the teams that win, I'm gonna try and do kind of like a what's going on well for this team type of video, and
Excellent.
we'll see how it goes.
That's
So,
great.
all right, everybody. Hey, we appreciate you being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, 5-star rating, review. Quick thing that I do need to bring up. Ohio State number 1 in the conference odds right now on FanDuel, minus 155. Indiana's plus 175, and then a big drop off from there. Oregon is plus 1200.
Interesting.
So, yeah, very much so. The odds agree with us on FanDuel. Ohio State, Indiana, the top two. Ohio State is favored, but looking about that way. I want to see the Heisman odds really fast. Ty Simpson still has odds to win the Heisman over Julian Sain. That is insane. I don't see what people see in him, dude.
He's good.
He's good, but he's not Heisman good.
Well, I think part of the problem, there is no good Heisman candidate right now. The
I
best
disagree. Fernando Mendoza is.
Yes. No, sorry. But even that,
There's no good one from the SEC, is what you meant.
no. I think Mendoza had a good he had a solid game against Oregon in his marquee matchup, which should be a big deal. But I think people are stat watching, and that's not right. And he's also from Indiana, which is not right. But
You're saying that they look at him that he's from Indiana, and that's not right. That they look at him and say he's
it's
from
not
Indiana.
it's
Right.
not right that they're like, well, Indiana's a nice story, but it's like, no, like Mendoza saying, and honestly, it stinks that neither of them had the preseason hype that like Jeremiah Smith did, because as good as Jeremiah Smith is, he's not going to win it because he just doesn't command the attention like quarterbacks do.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I do not give out betting advice very often on here, but I just had a random thought while we were going through this. If you are going to bet on Ohio State or Indiana, which I'm not, telling you to do, but if that is so your inclination, you probably want to parlay that with their quarterback to win the Heisman. Because right now it looks like whoever wins the Big Ten championship, the Heisman is probably that quarterback's for the taking, I would say.
Yep.
I mean, don't you think that most likely the winner of the Big Ten, their quarterback, as long as everything kind of sticks with where it's at, most likely wins the Heisman?
Yeah, I think especially if both teams end up undefeated and it's a 1-2 matchup and you have that storyline,
Mm-hmm.
I think that really will help.
Yeah, I agree. And if you want to, just go in and throw in there like the undefeated record too, I guess, on FanDuel if you wanted to. But yeah, I'm not gonna get that deep into it.
Yep.
A two odds parlay is about as deep as I get. So there you go. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. We'll be back tomorrow night with most impressive part of every Big Ten win. Get a go back, watch, see what we got, and Zach and I will give the most impressive part of each Big Ten win, and then of course we'll comment on the other team as well and what went on there. So thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Have a good one.